Welcome to this presentation on media ethics and regulation in the UK. I think it's fair to say most of the UK media has a worldwide reputation for adhering to strict professional standards. However, there have been many times when the ethics of journalists have been called into question, and certainly the public perception of journalism has been tainted in recent years by various scandals. But despite this, it can be said that the UK media profession does have in place codes of ethics that have been created to ensure that it can be held to account. These codes have been put in place by professional bodies such as the Independent Press Standards Organisation, or IPSO, which replaced the Press Complaints Commission, and the National Union of Journalists, or NUJ. The ethics codes for broadcast news is based on law, and every broadcaster has to follow the rules laid out by the regulator Ofcom, and in the case of international news organisations such as the BBC, these rules are the basis for their editorial guidelines, which journalists have to follow. All of the codes of conduct have various common strands that cover important issues, such as accuracy and fairness, not intruding into grief or shock, strict rules about reports containing children, not producing anything likely to lead to hatred or discrimination, and protecting the identity of sources. Ofcom's broadcasting rules also cover similar important areas. In terms of regulators, the rules are very different for print and online journalists and broadcast journalists. Print media is self-regulated through IPSO and another body called Impress. These organisations are not backed up by law, and membership is completely voluntary. For broadcasters, the regulator is Ofcom, and it's completely independent, operating under various Acts of Parliament. Because of these differences, the regulatory powers over the print media and broadcast media are vastly different. Ofcom has much more wide-reaching powers, including the ability to impose substantial fines. For print, IPSO can also impose fines, investigate complaints and demand printed apologies, but membership, remember, is completely voluntary. Most of the time, journalists in the UK pride themselves on their professional codes of ethics, but of course there are times when the guidelines are stretched, and recently the tabloid press in particular has come under increasing scrutiny and criticism stemming from the phone hacking scandal which began in 2006. This story, which involved the news of the world hacking into voicemails of phones owned by celebrities, politicians, and even murder victims, has led to a wholesale inspection of how the print press in the UK is regulated. As a result, Sir Brian Leveson was asked by the government in 2011 to look into the culture, practices, and ethics of the press. In 2012, his report was published, and Sir Brian made a number of recommendations. These included getting rid of the Press Complaints Commission, or PCC, and replacing it with a body that was still self-regulating but backed by law and had powers to impose heavy fines. Some people, primarily a group called Hacked Off, have used the News of the World scandal and the Leveson Report to push for a comprehensive change to how the UK press is regulated. But so far, the government has been reluctant to go further than the creation of a strong independent regulator, because they don't want to be accused of overtly interfering with the media. The issue is ongoing, as even though the PCC has been replaced by IPSO, and to a lesser extent Impress, some sections of the media have not signed up to these organisations and are against increased regulation and anything that they feel threatens the fundamental issue of press freedom. And finally, what of the internet, which even Sir Brian Leveson himself called the elephant in the room? Currently in the UK, news websites, blogs, tweets and videos are partially covered by English broadcast media laws, but obviously there will be times when the law does not apply, but an ethical boundary has still been crossed. What happens then? It's widely acknowledged that Twitter and similar sites are difficult to moderate and control, and at the moment it's been left up to the more reputable ones, such as Huffington Post UK, BuzzFeed and Guido Fawkes, to self-regulate and voluntarily sign up to industry codes of conduct. It will be interesting to see if this is left alone in the future or if at some stage this status quo has to be challenged.